Hello guys, and welcome to another video. Now, Path of Exile 2's Dawn of the Hunt update is out and it's added over 100 new unique items to the game, many of which are specifically targeted to be endgame uniques that you can build your character around. Because one of the biggest complaints about the itemization for PoE2's early access launch was that the unique items, well, they just kind of sucked. The very large majority of them were far too weak to compete at endgame with rare crafted items, and in most cases their unique properties weren't interesting or special enough to actually build around. GGG acknowledged this in several interviews since launch, and in Dawn of the Hunt they set out to provide more options for endgame uniques. One of those options is the topic of today's video, Apep's Supremacy. Now, this is a returning unique from PoE1, but it's quite different. Notably, this is a focus item, so you won't have any inherent block gain from your offhand while you have this item equipped. Okay, let's first discuss the energy shield recharge modifiers on this item. 30 to 50% increased energy shield recharge rate, and 30 to 50% faster start of energy shield recharge. These modifiers are really good, especially considering the removal of Grim Beast in this patch. You now need to solve Energy Shield's recovery problem, as its baseline recharge mechanic is quite weak without investment. By default, you'll recharge just 12.5% of Energy Shield per second, but only after a period of 4 seconds has passed without taking any damage to Energy Shield. On a max roll, these modifiers combined are the equivalent to 2 notable passives on the passive skill tree, which is very good, and with 50% on each of these, you'd improve the default recharge up to 18.75% of ES recovered per second, and you'd only need to wait a period of about 2.7 seconds before recharge kicks in. So just this focus on its own has the potential to boost up recharge to be a lot more useful, and obviously you'd also invest elsewhere like on the passive tree, especially if this ends up being your main recovery method, so it would be even better than that. However, as good as these modifiers are combined on Apep Supremacy, this is not the reason you're picking up this unique item, because Apep's has an incredibly strong unique modifier. 20% of elemental damage from hits taken as chaos damage. This is a wild modifier, especially considering how Vaal Orbs work with the uniques in Path of Exile 2. So 20% of all of the elemental damage you take from hits is taken as chaos damage instead. Note that this is only for hits, it won't work for things like fire or cold damage over time. This modifier is incredibly powerful in combination with Chaos Inoculation, which makes you immune to chaos damage. The portion of elemental hit damage which is taken as chaos is effectively removed from the calculation, so when combined with CI, you're essentially taking 20% less damage from all elemental hits. Now, whilst this is already incredibly powerful in terms of raw damage mitigation, it's also important to discuss incoming elemental ailments. Player elemental ailment threshold was halved in this patch, and that means that getting inflicted with dangerous ailments such as shock is a lot more common, and in PoE2 ailments are a lot harder to solve. But for Chaos Inoculation, you simply have a default elemental ailment threshold of 1, and that's really, really bad. However, fear not. In a patch that's arriving imminently, GGG are making some changes to the Energy Shield stun threshold passives on the tree to also include elemental ailment threshold. So you'll be able to add a percentage of your total ES to your elemental ailment threshold, making it harder to inflict those ailments on you. And Apep Supremacy works incredibly well in combination with this change. That's because for an ailment like shock, the chance that this ailment gets inflicted on you is based on the damage taken by a hit after mitigation relative to the target's ailment threshold. That means that not only will you be able to boost your elemental ailment threshold with nodes on the tree, but you'll also take 20% of the lightning damage as chaos damage, which deals no damage because of CI, and that portion of the damage cannot contribute to shock chance. Now, remember I mentioned Vaal Orbs earlier. This is where things get really crazy, because in PoE2, not only can unique items not brick to rare when being corrupted, but they also have a special outcome from corruption which can improve the magnitude of modifiers by up to 22%. And what that means is that it's possible, not likely, but possible to receive at least a 20% increase to the damage taken as modifier, bringing it up to a ridiculous 24% of elemental hit damage taken as chaos damage. 24% less elemental hit damage taken on a CI build all of the time. That is insane. Now, Apep does have another modifier which serves as a downside for the most part, plus 25% chance to be poisoned. The crazy thing here is that whilst poison in PoE2 does bypass energy shield to deal damage directly to life, it still deals chaos damage, so you're immune to the damage if you're using CI, and therefore you don't care about being poisoned. This modifier may become more useful in the future, however, if new uniques or mechanics are added to take advantage of being poisoned. Lastly, of course, there's the one modifier we haven't talked about just yet, and likely the least important modifier on this item. That's the 100 to 200% increased energy shield. This would be a great modifier if it wasn't for the fact that Apep Supremacy uses the Voodoo Focus base type, which is a low-level base type that has about half of the base energy shield compared to the current highest base that you can obtain. Add to that the fact that there's no flat energy shield modifier on here to improve its effectiveness, and this modifier is less impactful as a result. With that said, however, on a 200% roll, you'll still be getting about 115 energy shield from this item if it also has quality, which is still decent considering how powerful the other modifiers are. Now, I will briefly mention the Acolyte of Chayula, even though I think this ascendancy still needs a lot more going on before it's particularly useful. The Chonk does have the Chayula's Gift notable, which is pretty easy access to 85% chaos resistance, which is quite good in combination with Apep Supremacy, but it's not even remotely close to the power level of CI combined with this item, but I still thought I'd mention it. Overall though, Apep Supremacy is an incredibly powerful defensive offhand in combination with Chaos Inoculation, and judging by the amount of this item that's listed in trade leagues, it appears to be quite common as well, which means that 24% modifier corruption outcome is also more accessible as a result. And whilst Energy Shield did take a hit this patch with the removal of Grim Feast, it's still extremely strong. For example, the passive tree didn't get touched in terms of the amount of Energy Shield modifiers you can obtain. You can still get such a huge amount of increased Energy Shield, and that means that this combination with this item for CI is still extremely strong and extremely useful in this patch. So if you're looking for a more defensive option for your offhand as opposed to gaining more damage from a focus, you could look into using Apep Supremacy on a Chaos Inoculation build. How are you getting on with Dawn of the Hun? And what did you think of the fast changes GGG are making following the Zizaran interview? Let me know by commenting below. Thank you for watching this video, and as always, stay tuned and stay safe.